Howdy everyone, Greg Martin, the Entrepreneur's Banker here, and I'm going to be trying something a little bit different this week. With all the information that's been coming out with the CARES Act and the changes to the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program and all that, there's so much information going on out there. I'm going to be trying to shoot a video and send out an email every single day, just kind of saying, okay, here's the information that I know as of right now. Here's how I think that it impacts you. Here are the questions that I've been getting from a lot of the entrepreneurs that I work with. Here are the answers. And then really what I want to do with this is to be able to provide a consistent forum by which I can get information out to you, the entrepreneur, as quickly as possible. Now, I will caveat that this information is, first off, all the opinions are my personal opinions. I'm not speaking for my employer or anything like that. But then two, I'm also just trying to pull in as much information as I can. So the details that I talk about, they may be incorrect, or by the time you even watch the video, they may have changed. But that's part of the problem in this environment, is there's just so much information out there. It is so contradictory. So I'm going to try and cut through a lot of that stuff and just say, okay, here's what I think it means. Here's how I think that you need to be aware of and how you can be impacted. So today we're going to talk about two main things. The first thing is we're going to talk about the improvement to the CARE Act, or the details on the CARE Act, and then the changes to the Economic Injury Disaster Loan. So last Friday, the Congress passed the CARE Act, and for those of you who don't know, that stands for the Corona Aid Relief and Economic Securities Act. And so this did a lot of things specifically for entrepreneurs. Two main things. One, the CARES Act talks about the Payroll Protection Plan, or PPP. This is a plan that a lot of entrepreneurs are having a lot of questions about. This is the plan that when I'm talking with a lot of entrepreneurs and saying, okay, I want to apply for an SBA loan, this is what they're specifically talking about. So what exactly is the PPP? So it is a program that is designed to help businesses small businesses that have fewer than 500 employees. This does include independent contractors, sole proprietors, self-employed individuals. You have to be operational as of February 15th of 2020, and the loans are specifically going to be used to cover anticipated or actual expenses that your business is incurring from February 15th, 2020 through March 30th of 2020. All right, so the loan size, these loans can be up to $10 million, and they'll be, so that's a big number. Not every business that applies will get a $10 million loan. So how will this actually be calculated? And so I'm going to kind of break it up in a couple different ways. So if your business was in operations last year, specifically between February 15th and June 30th of 2019, you will qualify for 250% of your payroll costs during that time. If your business just started this year, you will qualify from 250% of your payroll expenses from January 1st, 2020 through February 29th, 2020. Now, I understand that this probably this encompasses a lot of entrepreneurs, but there are some entrepreneurs that have really seasonally adjusted. You know, they hire seasonally during the summer times. And so if that's the case, then you can actually, instead of the starting date being on February 15th, it can actually be on March 1st of 2019. Okay, so $10 million is a huge number. So not every business is going to be able to get a $10 million loan under the Payroll Protection Plan. So how is your loan amount actually going to be calculated? Well, it's going to be calculated based upon your payroll expenses. So we're going to take a look at your historical payroll cost, and there are some things that count, and so there's some things that don't count. So what are the things that count? The things that count are any payroll or payment that you've made for salaries, wages, commissions, or anything similar during that time frame. Payment of cash tip, vacation, parental leave, sick leave, family leave, anything of all that has gone ahead and that is included into the calculation, along with if you had any allowance for dismissal or separation, payments that have to do with employee benefits for group health insurance programs, including insurance premiums, that's included. Payments to any retirement benefits, and then payments for any state or locally assessed tax that's on the income from your employees. All of that is included. So what are some things that are excluded? Well, the cap, the salary cap for any individual employee is $100,000 per year. So obviously that's going to be prorated for just the time frame that we're looking at. But anything that's above that $100,000 will be excluded, as well as any payroll taxes, any railroad taxes, any income taxes that were paid during the time. Any compensation for employees that are outside of the United States. So if you have employees that are outside of the U.S. and they're on your payroll, those will not be counted in the calculation for your loan. Now, there have been, as part of Phase 1 and Phase 2 of the legislation that has been passed because of the coronavirus, there were some things that specifically came out that talked about sick leave and the family medical leave and providing time off and stuff like that. All of those expenses, that actually that's excluded from your payroll costs. So as we continue to kind of go through this, we need to make sure that we are documenting very well the expenses that have been incurred so far, and so that we can kind of come together, and so that we know that how your loan is calculated, the loan size is calculated, is done as accurately as possible. Just as importantly as understanding what the loan size is going to be the repayment provision. This is the thing that a lot of entrepreneurs obviously are very excited about, is that there has been talk about and that if this information or this loan was actually used for specific expenses, that it will be forgiven and you won't have to pay it back. So what the government is going to look back, and actually got this information from the Chamber of Commerce. They put together this great 4-page PDF. I'll include it in this email, or if you're watching the video, you can just go ahead and just shoot me an email, and I'll send it to you. But so they're talking about, okay, what are the things that can be done that can be paid back, or it would be forgiven. And so anything the payroll costs. Go rewind just a couple seconds ago, and everything that I talked about that was included in that, if the loan proceeds are used for that, then it will be used, or it will be considered for forgiveness. Interest on mortgage obligations that occur in the ordinary course of business. Sorry. So this is where it's a little bit confusing, because one, I've got a lot of entrepreneurs that have businesses that they rent from a real estate holding company that is also owned by the owners. So the interest cost is not really borne by the operational company. It's borne by the real estate holding company. So I don't know how they're going to qualify that. And also, it's specifically talking about mortgage interest. There's a lot of entrepreneurs that have debt on vehicles and equipment, working capital, all of that, as of right now, as far as how I read and interpret the law, that's not included. But more information to definitely come on that. Leasing and the expense for leasing and renting of a rental agreement, again, this can be excluded or can be forgiven. But the question is this specifically about leasing a place of business, a physical location, or what if you have to lease equipment or vehicles or something like that? Will the expense that's incurred from that be excluded? And I don't know. Payments on utilities, that's gas, electricity, water, transportation, phone, internet, stuff like that. All of that would be eligible to be forgiven, as well as if you've got any borrowers that have tipped employees or additional wages that is paid to those employees. And then obviously this should make sense that the amount of forgiveness should not or cannot exceed the amount of the loan. So if you get a $250,000 loan and all of those categories, and you actually spent $300,000 during this 8-week time frame in all of those categories, and they're all eligible, only the $250,000 that you borrowed will be forgiven. The government's not going to give you that additional $50,000 back. So a lot of that, there's a lot of questions that are going to still come through that, and how we actually track and maintain and calculate that stuff. As far as the forgiveness, that's going to be very, very important. There are a couple exclusions that will actually reduce the amount of forgiveness that you receive, and I'm not going to kind of go into that right now. But again, the Chamber of Commerce 4-page PDF, they do a really good job of kind of walking through that. Additionally, I think that there's going to be a lot more information that comes out, a lot more guidance that we're going to have. So be on the lookout for that. So when is all this going to take place? And that personally is your $360 billion question. I know that a lot of entrepreneurs, even over this weekend, I've had 4 or 5 entrepreneurs text or email me, say, hey, I want to apply for the SBA loan, I'm ready to go. And the fact of the matter is that we just don't know how long it's going to take. And I've heard everything from commitments that within 2 or 3 days money will start flowing through banks, to, hey, it could take 3 or 4 or 5 weeks. The fact of the matter is that the law actually has a 30-day provision that the SBA can kind of take up to 30 days to look at the law and then figure out, okay, how are we going to actually administer this? How are we going to actually work with our partner banks? Because this is a bank loan that is supported 100% by the SBA. This is not the economic injury disaster loan that is administered and given 100% by the SBA. So these are going to be bank loans that are guaranteed by the SBA. So the SBA's got to figure out, okay, how are we going to work on this? And then the banks that they work with are going to have to say, okay, well, how are we going to figure out how we're going to do this? What's the documentation that we're going to need? What is the specific questions that we need to ask? What do we need to provide for the client for them to sign? What does the client need to provide for us? These are a lot of questions that have to be answered. Shoot, do banks extend these loans to only their current customers, or if there's prospects or non-customers, would a bank be willing to extend these loans? And the answer is that I have no idea. And every single bank will be a little bit different, I'm sure. So I encourage you to reach out to your banker specifically. Talk to them about, okay, what is your bank's response? What is your bank's time frame? And then be able to kind of walk through that. You know, and as a banker, I would just beg you to realize that we are 1,000% committed to supporting the entrepreneurs that we work with, but you've got to give us a little bit of a time, because we've got a lot of clients that we're working through. To be able to have communication and over communication is key, and that's part of the reason why I'm trying to do these emails on the daily. Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about what if I were in your shoes, what would I be preparing for right now? Because we don't know how banks are going to require, what they're going to require, or how the process is actually going to work. But if I were in your shoes right now, I would be going and I would rewind this, I'd rewind this video, and I would again hear about all the things that are included and all the expenses that are excluded. And I would start to prepare a spreadsheet and documentation for that. Again, if you were in business last year, then that's going to be from February 15th, 2019 to June 30th, 2019. If you've just started this year, it's going to be from January 1st, 2020 to February 29th of 2020. And if you are seasonally adjusted, then be able to kind of take a look back and start that, instead of February 15th, start it on March 1st. If you're an independent contractor or sole proprietorship or sole proprietor, something like that, then I would be going about and I would be collecting any payroll or compensation type information that you have, whether that be a 1099 or any type of profit and loss statement, tax filing, stuff like that. So that's what I would be doing right now as it pertains to the Payroll Protection Plan, or PPP. All right. So there's also been a couple changes to the Economic Injury and Disaster Loan Program that once the CARES Act was signed, they actually took down the website and they made some changes and they've uploaded the website. All right, so there's a couple big changes that I want to walk through with you. First and foremost, it seems like the tax returns and other financial information like company prepared statements or extensions or something like that, that's no longer going to be required as part of the submission. So a personal financial statement still is required, but even then again, personal tax returns are not required. There is a new form that is required. I'm working on a video where I'm going to go form by form and kind of walk through the nuances of that. But there is a new form. It's the SBA Form P-019, and that's the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Supporting Information Form. And basically what that form is going to say is that it wants to find out what your gross receipts were for the 12 months prior to the disaster. Another big change is that with all of the forms, before you could go in and you would fill all the information out and then you would hit submit online. With all of the forms now, you actually have to download the form, fill them out, and then upload or submit them to it. And you can either upload it to them, you can email it to them, or you can snail mail to them. You no longer just fill the information out and just kind of hit submit, and then everything's taken care of. Another major change is that there's no longer a place that you can check the status of this. And so I actually went through and I went through again the application process. I uploaded all the forms that I had, and then I thought that I would it asked for your email, so I thought I would get an email back right away saying, hey, this has been accepted, here's the status. That actually wasn't the case, so I called the 800 number, and that number is 1-800-659-2955. And the nice lady there told me that they've just been so inundated that it'll probably be between 5 and 7 business days before I even get a response. If I don't get a response in that time, then to call back and then she can kind of check on the status of it. But there is no way, like before, you could just click on a button and put in your information and then check on the status of your application, but that's not the case anymore. Another major change, and I think this was an impact from with the CARES Act as it passed, is that as part of the economic injury and disaster loans, EIDL loans, that you can apply for a $10,000 grant that gives $10,000 of working capital that's immediately to you. So if you've already applied for the EIDL loan, once they've got the website set up again, you'll actually have to go back and apply for this grant if that's something that you want to do. Going forward, once they've got their website fixed, that as part of the submission of the EIDL loans, that you'll automatically be submitted for the grant. And what I've seen on a couple different websites is that grant is actually processed very quickly, and that you'll get that money within 3 days. So more to come on that. Definitely a lot of good information has come out. But there's also, with this, it's also brought a lot of confusion, specifically around, okay, do I apply? What if I apply for both? Does the application of one disqualify me from the application or the receipt of the other? And I've seen a lot of contradictory information, so I really can't give you a really good recommendation on what you need to do or what you should do. If I were in your shoes, I would go ahead and just like you're going through and you're preparing all the information that you can for the PPP program, is that have all the information ready for the economic injury and disaster loan, have all the forms ready to go, have them filled out, have them signed, have them saved right where it's readily available, and then once we get a little bit more clarification as to whether or not the exclusivity of the two programs exist, then you can make a determination of, okay, do I apply for both or do I apply just for one? Again, the things that are maximum to you from an entrepreneur standpoint, I think, are flexibility and timing. So you want to maximize your financial flexibility. You want to be able to say, okay, how can I help my business the most and what gives me the best avenue to do that, and then two, how long is each one of these going to take? And right now, like I said, there's a lot of information that's going to continue to flow out, but you need to be prepared. And heck, I mean, if you're an entrepreneur and you're watching this, you're trying to be proactive and trying to figure out what's going on. So I want to just give a shout out to a couple people. One, I talked about the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. They did an amazing job kind of pulling together that 4-page PDF. And again, I'll have that included in the email. Or if you did not get the email, just go ahead and reach out to me, and I will. I'd be more happy to send it to you, the PDF. I also want to thank Ami Kassar. He's the CEO of Multifunding, which is a business loan advisor group or company, and he and his group do a daily conference call, WebEx, with updates from the SBA programs. Absolutely phenomenal information. There's so much information out there. I really trust the information that they're digging through. Again, we're just trying to figure this out, and there's a lot of unknowns, but Ami and his group do an amazing job of that. And then thirdly, I want to thank Vern Harnish and the group. He's the CEO of a lot of companies, but Scaling Up is one of his companies, and the Scaling Up group actually put together some job aids to kind of walk through and say, hey, here's how the CARES Act, what it means to you entrepreneurs, and things that are impactful to you. I've kind of pulled from these three main things. I'm continuing to watch and see what else is out there to be able to give you the best information. I really appreciate you taking the time. I know this is run a little bit longer. I'm going to try and keep these to under 10 minutes, but there's so much information out there. I appreciate you taking the time to watch the video. If you have any questions, please reach out to me directly, and I'll have my contact information here in just a second. I'd love to be able to continue to support you and encourage you. I know that being an entrepreneur during this time is extremely uncertain and very nerve-wracking. So I want to just encourage you. Thank you for doing all of the hard work that you're doing. Thank you for working on your business and finding out how you can continue to survive. Thank you for demonstrating the creativity and the grit that you have. This business environment is uncertain, but together we're going to get through it. I'm so proud of what you're doing. I'm so proud of what you are accomplishing, and I just want to encourage you to hang in there. This is Greg Martin, the Entrepreneur's Banker. I look forward to talking with you and touching base tomorrow with any updates. Until tomorrow, thanks and gig 'em.